A town hall meeting in Vallejo filled with people worried about gun violence in America. Congressman Mike Thompson said he's determined to do something about it. A bill he introduced would expand background checks to cover all commercial sales. That includes gun shows, online sales, and through classified ads. But people who have guns just transferred to them would be exempt.
It's really a bridge too far to expect that this Congress, the leadership of this Congress, is going to take something that's more restrictive than the bill that I have and pass that into law.
This last tragedy brought home about when I dropped my boys off at school. That might be the last day that I see them.
Congressman Thompson says his bill has bipartisan support, and he's hoping it fares better than his previous attempts, which never even got a hearing.
Now, this isn't the first time we've had a tragedy like this or a debate like this on the national level. So Melissa and I asked former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown, what makes this different from the times in the past?
This time, it's the young people, the students who are involved. They're the ones who are leading the protests, not unlike Kent State for the Vietnam War, not unlike the Civil Rights Movement in the South. It's a whole collection of people who can make a change and who's got no other agenda.
Well, and also it does feel a little different, and you know, forgive me if we've said this before, but the polls are showing you know, greater gaps between people, the sort of small minority of people who are against certain gun control regulations and the rest of the population. We also have found a formidable opponent for the online army of Trump supporters, maybe Russian bots, and that is teenagers who can respond and pile on to various people attacking them from the right.
But we have the political front, but I'm sensing a change on the corporate front.
There is a great change.
Okay, because that is a mover as well.
The minute Dick's Sporting Goods said you can no longer buy that kind of equipment in our shop, and it was followed very quickly by car companies who are carrying the name and the logo, airlines who are carrying the name
who had
and the
business
logo.
deals with the NRA at their conventions.
Correct.
And stuff.
Even those of us who are, you know, in the category of those people, old people, you know, who get all those things, we are also being told, don't buy the guns. We don't buy any guns. Yeah, that's not what we do.
So corporate America is saying no. Corporate America doesn't, Dick's Guns doesn't want to have one of its guns used in something like this,
And
right?
when you see corporate America reacting very quickly, they're generally tied closer to what public sentiment is at the time. FedEx, I will point out, has done something really extraordinary. What they've come out and said is, we're not going to give the NRA anything, you know, any more advantages than we give anyone else who bulk ships with us. But they made a statement saying we want a ban on assault rifles. And that was a bigger deal. And that was a more direct statement from a company like FedEx. They clearly think this is the way to go.
And some of the corporate operators have now said the demands that the kids are making, like age and mental checks and what have you, although it's not mandated, we're doing that before we sell the product, which is totally and completely legitimate.
Melissa, I understand that what are the downsides for corporations? Is there any kind of blowback going on legislatively on this?
Well, I'll tell you, my home state of Georgia actually just refused to pass a tax break for Delta. It would have afforded Delta about a $40 million tax break. And the lieutenant governor and other members of the legislature came right out and said, we're absolutely sort of pulling back on this gift to Delta because of their stance on the NRA.
All right, now the Department of Justice is reviewing Mayor Schaaf's warning. So Melissa and I sat down with former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown and said, would he have warned the public?
No, I would not have had the nerve to do that because, you know, I'm always concerned about being incarcerated for violating the law. That has restrained my conduct for years. And believe me, interfering with the opportunity for federals to enforce, that's a courageous, clever thing that she risked a lot doing that.
So you think it was the right thing to do?
What?
Do you think it was the right thing to do for her?
Oh, yes, for her. Since she cares enough about it and she doesn't have to worry about bail in case of incarceration, yes, it was enough for her.
Well, you interviewed her. She looked terrified. She looked like this had spun out of control in a way that she did not anticipate. It seemed like she was going to make this tweet and maybe make a few public statements, and that was going to be that. I think she appeared to me to be genuinely surprised at all the attention it got.
Well, it became the story of the week. It ratcheted her up, as if you would now say she is now the de facto leader of the resistance, quote unquote, in California. For all of Governor Jerry Brown's pronouncements, for all of the lawsuits being filed by the Attorney General, that's just paper floating around in the channel. She actually did something.
And it did one more thing. Whatever the Democrats thought they were going to dominate on the news side from their convention, Libby snuffed it out.
You're talking about the state convention.
Yes.
She did. Now,
she snuffed it out.
On the flip side, however, there were a good number of those people being sought by immigration who have criminal backgrounds. What is she risking if something goes, if one of those people commits a crime or does something and the ICE turns around and says, see, this is an example of it as well?
Well, she's not necessarily in legal peril. You have to be a little more specific if you want to be in legal trouble for obstruction or harboring, but she certainly would face a big PR problem. If one of these people who weren't picked up goes out and does something horrifying, it's going to be on her, and she's running for re-election.
But what are the pluses for her?
But keep in mind, that's the exact risk that restrains a person as insecure as I am from doing that. on the what's the pluses for? All pluses.
Well, I'm not so sure about the all pluses. What are you hearing from?
Or the insecure part.
Well, we definitely don't go with Mayor Brown being insecure. But there's people on the left that are raising questions about what she did as well.
That's right. We've got City Councilwoman Rebecca Kaplan, who's come out and said that Libby Schaaf essentially upset and sort of agitated the immigrant community unnecessarily. And so there are criticisms coming from people who say, you know what, this is not helpful to freak out, basically, the immigrant community.